And so when you organize your perfect private game, you're actually looking for people that bring that, bring some fun to the game and bring social skills, right? And then you also touched on not too much skill disparity in the game.
And you're using a different way of organizing the players. We were talking about this the other day. You mentioned the ecology. That is organizing the players within roughly their demographic, if that's right. Why don't we talk about those couple of things?
Yeah, let's talk about this. So I guess the first point I want to get across is that AI, artificial intelligence, right? It's very, very topical and popular right now, but our business has been built on it for years, actually. So way before you started hearing about AI and ChatGPT and stuff like that, we've been using AI for a couple of really interesting things. The first thing relates to the ecology, right? And it's about how do we ensure that we have sustainable games in the long term? How do we ensure that players can have a positive experience, that they can win more than they can anywhere else? And it's about how you organize the games, how you distribute your player pool across the tables. So if you just put yourself in the mindset, let's say you're organizing a private game. Let me ask you this question, actually. You're going to organize a private game. What kind of players would you invite if you wanted that game to go on as long as possible?
I would invite players that well, there'd be a lot of variables, right? But I would try to invite players that, you'd want, obviously, the biggest VIPs possible. You'd want, other than that, probably not people that are crushing too much, especially if they intimidate too much. That's actually kind of worse than them actually winning a lot. It's more important factor. It makes more sense why I don't get invited to too many games. I'm like, damn it, I can't play that angle. And if I didn't have the option of having really big VIPs, I would have a lot of players kind of in the same vicinity. I think, because then they would argue about who's better, they wouldn't really know, and there wouldn't be too much. There wouldn't be too much like dodging, and there'd be more gambling and that sort of thing.
So I think you touched on some really important things that relate to exactly what we're doing. So first of all, you said you need to invite some VIPs to the game, and you're absolutely right, because
ideally,
well, yeah, but a game that's only pros is not going to last very long. Pros don't generally want to play under those conditions, right? Pros play together for different reasons. They play for competition. Maybe at the end of a tournament you end up in a position where a bunch of pros are playing together, but generally you're organizing a private game, you're not going to invite only pros to it. You mentioned something else, which is you mentioned intimidation. So this is something that kind of applies more live than online, but you're looking for people with social skills, right? People that make it a fun game to play. If poker's a unique game, well, maybe not unique, but it's different from many other casino games in the sense that you can change the value of the people around you. You have a direct impact on the players around you. You can scare them away, or you can make them feel welcome. You can give them a good time, and so when you organize your perfect private game, you're actually looking for people that bring that, bring some fun to the game and bring social skills, right? And then you also touched on not too much skill disparity in the game. If you've got a couple of really, really terrible players and then a couple of really, really great players, then the money is going to flow very, very quickly from the terrible players to the great players, and the game won't last very long. So you need some way of measuring that skill disparity, that skill disparity between the players. So what we do using AI, we have a system called Fair Game. And what it does is it very quickly ascertains the skill level of players playing in our cash games using a machine learning model, which is a form of AI for people who are not too familiar with the idea. So we measure the skill level of every player, and then we essentially categorize you in one of 6 categories. We can simplify it to be casual players and pros, right? Broadly speaking, casual players and pros. And the idea is to ensure the right balance of casual players and pros at each table. So if you have no pros at all, then tables don't start as easily and they don't survive as long. The principle of fair game is that we reserve a certain number of the seats at the table for casual players. And then the remaining, so most of our tables are 8-handed. This is the tables that people just prefer to play on our network, which is a little bit different to most other sites actually. Most of our tables are 8-handed. So we reserve 6 of the seats for casual players or recreational players, which leaves 2 remaining that can be occupied by pro players. And it's about establishing this perfect balance, right? We believe that for most of our games, that balance of 6 recreationals and 2 pros means that the game, it lasts as long as possible and is as sustainable as possible, but it also ensures the best experience for everybody at that table. So we're not completely segregating the player pools from each other. I want to make that clear, right? So if you're a pro, you always have a table to sit at any given stake. It's just that you will need to start tables more often if you're a pro. Once you do start a table, though, there can only be one other pro that sits at that table with you. One of the problems that our industry has, right, the poker industry as a whole has this problem, and it's getting worse, is as a new player, I can sign, like somebody who's barely played online poker, barely knows the rules. I can sign up to GG or Stars, and I can sit down at a table, and I will probably be playing against 7 or 8 really experienced, really strong, expert opponents, probably. And in that circumstance, I'm very unlikely to win. In fact, I'm probably going to have a really poor experience. And when that happens, they just leave and never come back. They never play online poker again. And this is a huge problem for our industry because we rely on new players coming in all the time. And it's also a problem in terms of growing our industry because we've got enormous, very successful casino and betting companies that have no interest in offering poker because they don't want their new players to be exposed to this experience. New players, I take an example of BetVictor, for example. BetVictor is a very big casino and sports book in Europe. And the CEO, I was speaking with him a few years ago, and he said, I would never want new players to go play poker because they're more likely to win playing slot games or blackjack or roulette.
Yeah, I mean, what do you say? This is actually, I didn't even realize this, but this makes a lot of sense. Probably new players you don't want to play, you don't want them to play with like people who are better than them or like that much better than them anyway, or it's like they've gotten a shot.
You know, it's very common for new players to have a bad experience, and when they do, they don't come back, they're gone. And they now are taking their entertainment dollars and they're spending it on something completely different that's not poker. Because you got to remember, we are competing for somebody's disposable income, and we're competing with everything else that they might do with that. Netflix or video games, or any other form of gambling, or whatever. We're literally competing against every other form of entertainment.
Yeah. You make a valid point. There has to be some kind of way to position poker so that it's more attractive of a possibility than these other options for these recreational players. At the least to be, and that's actually very difficult. I mean, it's not that simple a problem to solve, but definitely what you're onto with pairing them with other novices or whatever.